Abbott Elementary, Season 3, Episode 5, Breakup, and Season 3, Episode 6, Willard R. Abbott are over, but we are back to talk about them on Recap Kickback. That's right, I'm your host, Chappell, and with me to talk about the next two episodes of Abbott Elementary, it's Principal Gia Worthy. Principal Worthy, we back, baby. What's up?
We are so back, and they could not break up this duo, Chappell. However, we do see another breakup in
Another one.
the Abbott Elementary universe. I'm a little shocked that this happened when it happened, and I was wondering where they were going with this. Oh my God, we have so much to talk about, but this was a lot to process. This was a very strong 2 episodes, but still a lot to go through, and I did not think we were going to be getting these many developments in season 3, especially since we know this is a shortened season, I believe, because of the writer's strike and everything. Still super excited with the content we are getting, but oh my God, a lot is happening in this shortened season here.
You know, you're totally right. Before we get into that, of course, thank y'all for listening to us here on Recap Kickback as we recap Abbott Elementary. You might be here from the Abbott Elementary, a Post Show Recaps feed, which is up and running still, but come join us on Recap Kickback where Gia and I will be covering Abbott moving forward in the future. So we're going to finish out season 3 here for sure, but hopefully by the time season 4 is out, you all have made the transition to recapkickback.com. So go to recapkickback.com/subscribe to be a part of the Recap Kickback community and to follow Gia and I as we really just deal with this Abbott Elementary support group. Because in my mind now, we're all in this together, right? We got to push through because some of the couples that we've come to know and love are just not making the transition into season 3. Where we saw Melissa and the vending machine guy in, and we were like, okay, they wanted different things. We're okay with that. But in this next episode, we see the dissolution of one of the relationships that I thought this was the one true pair, man. I thought Jacob and Zack, they were the chosen pair. Gia, what happened?
I don't know. So there was always something in the back of my head that made me think this may not be a couple that lasts the entirety of the series, right? I love them. I love them both as separate characters. They're both adorable, but it was one of those side couples where it was like mentally preparing for a possible dissolution of the relationship in the future. I just did not expect it to be in a season where we already got a breakup, especially a breakup of the main characters here. So Jacob and Zack, them ending, they were very different people. So that part of it is not exactly what I am shocked about. I was wondering kind of like what they were going to do with this relationship moving forward in the series. And apparently the answer was just not have it anymore. And I suppose that's okay. I hope that this is not the end of Zack as a character, though, much like I've said with Gary and with Tariq when way back in season 1 finale when him and Janine broke up. So I hope they do go the Tariq route with Zack and that we still get some guest spots with him so that he's not a gone for good character. And it sounds like Zack can be a very vindictive ex. So I will enjoy the continuous biting commentary from him should they decide to bring him back in the future. I have a feeling this is not the last that we are ever going to see of this man, though.
I sure hope so, because Quinta was, wise enough to keep Tariq around. She knew that was, lightning in a bottle. Like, you just can't get rid of him. He's such an iconic character. But yeah, I think the thing that has me most upset about this breakup is that there's a world where Zack is no longer on the show, and I'm just not okay with that. He's not a character we see all the time, but when we do, he always makes me laugh. He's so funny. He was a great pair to just be with Jacob specifically because they're so different, and it's fun to kind of watch them navigate each other. But if we lose Zack here, I'm not going to be okay, because even in this episode, finding out that he is vindictive and that he's now shrinking Jacob's shrinkables and doing other vindictive things, I'm like, yeah, bring me more of that. Maybe make him a bitter ex and we have to see more of him throughout. I would take that, Gia. I just can't deal with losing them all together.
I kind of want to see Flea Faff. I'm sorry. I screamed a little too loud in my work office when that joke was made.
Yeah. I was disgusted like Mr. Johnson was like, hey, whoa, but for different reasons. And so, yeah, we definitely need to get into that breakup and possible ramifications from other breakups in these next episodes. So, as we get into season 3, episode 5, which is called Breakup, we start off with a Hotep substitute showing up and realizing that Abbott might not be for him. It was jarring to see a Hotep character popping up on here. If you don't know what a Hotep character is, I'm not going to explain it to you. But if you are a Hotep character and you're listening to this, no disrespect, please don't come for me because I don't have time for it. All right.
You know who you are.
But you know who you are, okay? Grand rising to you too, my brother. Anyway, so this guy shows up with his clip-on bow tie. He's, wishing his brother good morning, grand rising, his sister grand rising, and ma'am Melissa as well, because she can't get the same greeting that the two black characters get. There's probably something to that, but we move. Anyway, very quickly he realizes that the doorknobs are sticky, there's smells that he never smelled before, and it's time for him to get out of there before the kids even get to school. Gia, another one bites the dust.
Oh my god, I love and hate the incredible Rolodex of teachers we are getting with this storyline of Quinta being work interning with the district right now. This was a funny little one and done moment here. The bet itself was very funny, especially Gregory's appreciation for the bow tie, and then soon to find out that it was a clip-on the whole time. The greatest deception that one can impose on somebody is the clip-on. And I loved it. I loved every moment about it. And Gregory needed a win that day, and he was not going to get it.
No, not with this guy at least. There's a lot of Gregory and Jacob in this episode, but I guess let's just get into it because we talked about the Jacob and Zack breakup, but let's show how we get there. Jacob is really trying to hang out with Gregory a lot more throughout these episodes. He's been staying out all night to avoid his problems. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's Melissa who's staying all night and avoiding her problems. Yeah, we haven't really talked about it, but Melissa has recently gone through a breakup, and there were parts in this episode. I mean, it did feel like she missed Janine's character, but I'm starting to question, was this about Janine or is this just Melissa being lonely since Gary the vending machine guy is gone?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think a lot of the teachers, particularly some of our haters, I love them, but they are professionals in both teaching and being a hater. I think that they're begrudgingly missing Janine and not realizing how big of a presence she was. She's obviously a big presence, but just like how her being there is a part of their day. And I don't blame them. Sometimes you have a coworker, you have a constant presence that is there and you're sort of friends, and then they leave, and then you're like, what the hell was that for? Like, why we built that camaraderie, we had that back and forth going, and like why you're suddenly going to greener pastures? How dare you?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than your favorite coworker leaving the job that you are miserable at with them. It's like, we're in this together. You go to work looking for that person only for them to be gone one day.
I just appointed a different coworker as my favorite coworker after my other favorite coworker left. He did like the trial and error, and this poor man now, he is locked in for life. He does not get a way out until I leave. He leaves when I leave.
Right. Blood in, blood out. At some point, some things are sacred and you just can't leave your favorite coworker high and dry. Thoughts and prayers for you, though. I didn't know you were going through such a loss.
Listen, I wear grief well, especially breakups such as this. I know it does not seem on par with just who I am as a person, but like God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers.
Okay, and Jacob is going. Yeah, speaking of we'll save God for the end of this one. But speaking of a tough soldier here, Jacob is going through. He might be missing Janine, but we don't hear a lot about it because now he's spending a lot of time with Gregory. Apparently, to the point where Mr. Johnson is feeling a little left out of this boys group. So we find out that Jacob is, I guess you could call it, quiet quitting his relationship. He's just going to be awful until Zack breaks up with him because he just can't bring himself to break up with Zack. Gia, what do you think about this tactic of, ending a relationship with someone?
I love Jacob, and I love that, I love Jacob's character this season. I think he has had some of the funniest moments this season. someone get Chris his Emmy. I'm seeing like he's really auditioning for the Emmy this season, I think. But I think that the soft launch breakup, I don't know exactly what to get. Yeah, the quiet quitting of a relationship. It does not work. It's super unhealthy. I think it's obviously easier said and done to just rip off the Band-Aid and move on. But it is so much better than what Jacob is doing here. If this is obviously funny because it's a show and we got to see like Zack's. I was cracking up at the scene where he's like doing all the passive aggressive things at his house, and Zack is like, like all the gas and perfection. But outside in the real world, do not do this. It is a terrible idea. Gregory is straight up just very unsupportive of like this method of breaking up with people. And I agree with him on this. I think we are finally getting to see like more of Gregory and Jacob as besties. And this is exactly the type of content I wanted. But I think Jacob is more of a emotional, reactionary person, where Gregory is more methodical. And I'm on Gregory's side with this.
Yeah, it's hard to be on Jacob's side with this too, because he's unhappy in the relationship. It seems like they both are, but rather than just being an adult about it and having the conversation, he'd much rather be passive aggressive by doing things that will make Zack want to break up with him, such as getting out of the car without talking to him. We see Zack is fuming. Now, we know this is bothering Jacob because he, of course, talks to Gregory about it, and they're bonding in a way that we really hadn't seen. Like, we've seen the show kind of escalating to this point where they're becoming a really tight duo, especially in the absence of Janine, who was kind of like the middleman between those two people as far as I was concerned. So one of the things that stands out here, of course, is that Jacob is inviting Gregory into his relationship's problems in a way, because Gregory's being nosy. And at first, Jacob's like, hey, you need to stay out of gay folk business. But very quickly, we realize that Gregory is very invested. He's like kind of staring at Jacob and Zack, all their interactions. He's inserting his own advice. And I think the advice is warranted, because when I see that Jacob is now going to go in the kitchen, wet the sponge without drying it out, leave crumbs and various peanut butter and jelly accoutrement around the kitchen as well, just to piss off Zack, I was thinking, okay, someone needs to step in and be the bigger person here, Gia.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is why the quiet quitting does not work, because it will probably leave one person just hoping that the other person is going to be fed up enough that they're going to cut the cord on the relationship, and that almost never works. And we see that in what Zack's reaction is that he is probably starting to blame himself, thinking of ways to fix what is clearly already broken beyond repair, and he decides to suggest couples counseling as something to do to fix that relationship, which is just going to extend the problem for this couple in particular, which is the opposite of what Jacob wanted here, which is how we get to the conclusion of the relationship.
Right. I think the worst case scenario in my life would be me wanting to break up with somebody, and as I'm getting ready to do it, they say, let's go to counseling to fix it. Because I can be a people pleaser at times, and I would think, okay, that's less painful, right? In the moment, it's like, I don't have to do the breakup thing. That's nice. But at the same time, the idea of being stuck in couples counseling with someone you just absolutely do not want to be with, under the pretense that you're actually trying to make it work, when in reality you just cannot bring your body to do it, that would drive me crazy. Worst case scenario, yeah, my personal hell for sure. So eventually Jacob snaps. He just can't take it anymore, and he accidentally blurts out that he wants to break up with Zack. And Zack surprisingly takes this well at first, Gia, because he's like, okay, Jacob, you're right. Maybe we have been growing apart. Maybe there's something we can work at. Maybe that's why I suggested couples therapy, because I just didn't want to accept that the relationship was ending. But then Jacob screws up and reveals that he actually had been trying to piss Zack off enough so where Zack would break up with him instead. And the scream I scrumped, Gia. This man, Zack, he's got to come back. He's got to come back on this show, because oh my God, that took me out. I was done.
I have to say, you held our team back at trivia is quite possibly the most devastating thing anybody could ever say to me. I don't think I would recover from that one. I got to be honest.
Your fun facts just really aren't that fun. That's another tough one.
That's terrible. Oh, my heart. Composting
Yeah.
is kind of disgusting though. Like, it's good for the environment. Do it if you can, but the smell couldn't be
Yeah, but
me.
I'm not gonna do it. You do it,
Yeah,
but I'm not. You know.
yeah.
So this is a low moment for Jacob, and luckily we see that Gregory is there to console him. Now, again, I pointed this out kind of passively, but Mr. Johnson is watching all this go down, and it feels like he's the third member of this trio, and he's getting cut out. Do we hate Gregory and Jacob for doing this? Because we're pro Mr. Johnson here on this podcast.
We are Mr. Johnson fans first and everyone else second. So, like
Absolutely.
that, this man must be protected at all costs. He's had kind of a up and down roller coaster. I would say he was the star of Career Day.
Absolutely.
And people are just not appreciative of the like specimen in front of them, and this is why he's not in a throuple. He can't deal with all of this, all of this mess that's going on here. Does Mr. Johnson think that Gregory is also in a relationship with them? I need to know if that's what
if he really thinks it. Yeah.
he think I want to know. I need to just pick at his mind a little bit, just see what's happening there. But yeah, I agree. I think that Mr. Johnson, just whatever scene you can put him in, because he is killing it with the one-liners this season.
Yeah, I mean, they almost don't acknowledge that Mr. Johnson's a part of this friend group at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's kind of wacky. I'll give him that, but also he's one of my favorite characters. So it bothers me when Gregory says stuff like, "Hey, Jacob, we'll go out, take your mind off of things, go play darts, and let's invite Janine." And I'm like, Mr. Johnson is right there. He's right there. So boo Gregory, boo Jacob, but also hopefully we get more Zack in the future. So, Gia, if you had to bet, you think this is the end of Zack, or we're going to get a recurring Zack and maybe a possible reconciliation maybe later on?
I don't think they're going to get a reconciliation. I think the most we can hope for with this relationship is that they will be friendly, be able to move on, be able to have an amicable end to their arc. I don't think this is going to be the end of Zack. I think Zack is a very well-received character. I don't think people were clamoring for them to break up. I don't know anybody that's super devastated. This was the couple that was going to really make it. But I think the most that we can get for is that we're going to get some type of friendship or some type of just amicable, final ending with these two. I really hope that we get to see more from Zack, a once a season type of character. He already was kind of a once or twice a season type of character. So I hope we get to see more of that here. Just because the relationship is dead does not mean that Zack, the character himself, has to be dead as well.
Right. No, total star here. Zack from Abbott Elementary. Yeah, I wonder if we could get the actor on this podcast. I'm just saying, because listen, Larry Owens, if you're listening to this, come holler at us. Give us the scoop on what's going on between Jacob and Zack in the future. I would love to see that. Also, another breakup we are dealing with, of course, it's Melissa and the breakup with Gary, the vending machine guy. She doesn't address it directly, but in this episode, Melissa seems to be a little bored. She is beefing with the substitute teacher, Cassidy Jeffrey, who has unorthodox teaching techniques, to say the least. And I guess I should just ask you, Gia, why does Cassidy have these babies yelling at the top of their lungs? What was the point?
The only thing I can think of is that it is a some type of stress reliever / getting all the energy out at the beginning of the day. However, I don't think it's a good idea to have a classroom of kids screaming in any capacity, just in general. It's just not a good idea, because I would be Melissa, just storming into the classroom being what the hell is here? Who are we fighting? What's going on? I think for just the sake of everyone else's sanity outside of that little classroom, just go to a park, do something like that. There's other ways.
Yeah, Cassidy describes himself as the temp, not the sub, and says some other questionable things, including, these questionable teaching techniques. And it has Melissa thinking, who is this? Who are they? What are they doing? Let's get Janine on the case. And so Janine, who we know Mrs. Abbott Elementary a lot, is very happy to moonlight in a way because she's working for the district, but she's spending a lot of time looking into Cassie Jeffrey and trying to help Melissa with this plot to find out who this imposter is at the school. So Melissa, we know, does not calm down. She just gets more irrational and irritated. And Janine is there to drop the hammer. She shows up at the school because she's done her Googles. She's done the searches through the district system, and she cannot find a Cassidy Jeffrey anywhere. So this is obviously a fraud, Gia.
Yes, of course, because there could be no other explanation, like Janine not knowing the correct spelling of this teacher's name, which, probably would be a good idea for them to elaborate on, but that is not what happens here. Of course not.
Yeah, that German spelling gets you every time. Janine makes a fool of herself because she's like, oh, Jeffrey with the G. Wow, that's uncommon. So she wasn't prepared for that. But the funniest thing about this part of this episode is that Melissa switches up so fast, Gia. I look up and she is gone.
Stand next to Jeffrey's afterward. They said right next to them.
Like, oh, Janine, wow, that was awful, Teagues. I would sure hate that you did that. Yeah, Janine's gonna end the episode with a complaint to the district about her. And Melissa gets off scot-free because she just was able to throw Janine under the bus. But they do discuss why this happened. And, Melissa says maybe she's bored or maybe she misses Janine. You think it's a little bit of both. I do think the Melissa and Janine scenes are very good on Abbott Elementary. And I don't think we get enough of them. Do you remember when Janine went to Melissa's house and she was cooking? She's like, yeah, cooking is like jazz. Yeah. that was one of my favorite episodes. Yeah. I think for me, I need more of that, Yeah,
I think Melissa bounces off of a lot of our bigger characters really well. I'd say, I'm not going to spoil episode 7 because I just watched it, but we'll talk about that a different time. But she's very good at being a supporting cast to whatever other cast member she's with. They play off very well. I'll never forget Barbara and Melissa at the teachers conference was just one of the greatest moments of my life personally. And I love it. And I do think that because they're both the second grade teachers, they have very different personalities, very different upbringings. I think that this is one of the best of the unlikely duo pairs here.
Yeah, and this episode was full of unlikely duos because, we got Gregory and Jacob that we're establishing as kind of a pair. Melissa and Janine is always fun when we get it. But I guess the biggest storyline of this episode is Barbara and Ava have a plot together. And Gia, we don't get enough Barbara and Ava. I will say that right now because those two are really good together.
We really do not. And this is one of the best pairs that we could ask for. This is, I think that's from my scrolling through Twitter occasionally. I think that is also one of the highlights of episode 6 was the duo of Barbara and Ava. Another one of my favorite episodes where they sell the candy bars, also a great Barbara Ava duo coming off there. I think this is probably one of my favorite pairs that we get in some of these storylines in Abbott.
Yeah, and this storyline is actually pretty interesting because Barbara is a part of the church choir, and she is, I guess her church gets they put a tight position where they need to have a different space to practice. And so Ava works out a deal where they can use the freshly named Ava Coleman Memorial Coliseum, also known as the auditorium, as their workspace, or are they in the gym? Gia, this is the gymatorium, right? This is
the Ava Coleman Coliseum.
Yeah, the Coliseum. That's what it is. Yes. So the church is using the Coliseum. They have a performance coming up, and they need a soloist to perform Shackles. Yes, Shackles by Mary Mary. That means one woman is going to harness the power of 2 Marys, and Barbara wants that woman to be her. But it looks like Barbara's arch nemesis is the one who's going to be making the choice here, and Barbara's not Sheila. Sheila is going to be the chosen one to sing the solo. And you can tell very early on in the episode that Barbara really wants to lead this song, Gia.
Well, listen, it's been a while since I've been to a church. Okay. Don't worry. Easter's coming soon. I'll be there.
Yeah.
However, I felt like I knew immediately where this was going. I don't think I concluded why this was where it was going afterwards, but Ava said it best. The church is just sorority for older women. You know, it's got the same. You like apologies to the churchgoers listening to this. I do not mean to offend. Please don't cancel me over this opinion. But however, I think that we saw a lot of similarities there between Ava's experiences with Mean Girls and what Barbara is currently going through, the passive aggressiveness, the comments, the little snippy comments in between the scenes and everything. And Ava, as an outsider watching this, is looking at them sideways, kind of like, you know, this doesn't really seem of the Lord.
She says that sorority of God, you know, or something like that. So
Yes.
it makes sense. I mean, Barbara pushes back against it, but it's very clear that there's a little cattiness going on in this group. For some reason, these people just don't vibe with Barbara. They keep talking about the amount of piercings that she has. She's probably showing too much ankle as well. You know, it's very conservative in this church choir. And so Barbara really wants to speak up and sing the Shackles solo, and Ava is going to help her make it happen. So she's telling her, listen, you got to get in there and take what you want. But even when Barbara tries to speak up, she's shut down immediately. And this was hard for me to watch because Barbara, we know that Barbara is a very conservative character in this show, but she's also very likable and very nice. So the whole time I was thinking, what did Barbara do to make these people so mad? And it turns out that Barbara is the least conservative of all the conservative women. She's way too liberal for them.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to hear this.
I was shocked at the initial reveal because I thought it was going to be something along, you know, the blackmail really, you know, people just can't let silly things go.
Right.
And
You get blackmailed one time and now I can't sing a solo, please.
yeah,
Please.
now I can't sing Shackles. Get over yourself, Sister Sloth. But it makes sense. It makes sense because like it's not just like we see Barbara as like of all the teachers, the most like conservatively minded in terms of like religion, you know? And I think a lot of people will immediately affiliate religion and like religious norms with like what our ideas of conservatism is. But there is Barbara's like religion connection to religion, even Ava's connection to religion, and what some people take their religious identity to mean, which is upholding. I will just say, even though I hate using this term because it's gross, but like modesty, like having a certain decorum, not wearing the loud lipstick, not having multiple piercings, the things that we love about Barbara, the things that add a little spice to like what is already a fantastic character in there. Not everybody is with it. They don't think that it fits their idea of a church going women, and they're wrong. They're very wrong. But it's interesting to see that, like, listen, these are some of the, you know, they're not all, just like not all Black people are a monolith. Not all church women are a monolith either. There are different levels to it.
Yeah, I love church, but I am not a very conservative person. I just love church because I love God, I love Jesus, you know, and so I like being in a room where everybody loves Jesus, and like so it makes it fun. I like the songs, I like hearing pastors, you know, me gusta la beat, I like the beat, you know, and so things like that. So I get it. You don't have to be the most conservative person to go to church and have a relationship with God, but you know, in church choirs, a lot of times people are more traditional and they want those things from their members and they want to highlight the members who are the most churchy, you know? And so between Barbara's cruises, her piercings, the jazz nights, we know Barbara enjoys a good glass of wine. They're probably looking at Barbara sideways. Also, she's friends with some of, as she calls it, the more colorful people over at Abbott. And I believe this is kind of hinting at her relationship or friendship with Jacob, and you know, and even like maybe like an Ava type that are less conservative, more liberal. You know, we know about Jacob's sexuality, and that's something that is commonly frowned upon in churches. And so with Barbara consorting with people of this sort, you know, maybe they're looking down upon her. And so for a second, it looks like she's going to give it up, but she says, I cannot leave the church choir because that's when I feel closest to God. So yeah, I love singing this song in particular. And so although the people are being mean to me, I'm not going to let that stop my praise. And so she goes to them one last time and attempts to get the solo. They shoot her right down. And so Ava, we haven't talked enough about Ava. Again, this is a pro Mr. Johnson podcast and a pro Ava podcast as well. This is the 15,000th time that Ava just swoops in and saves the day, Gia.
Mm-hmm. Won't she do it?
Yes, she did.
And I do want to say, like, also as somebody that, again, not a huge churchgoer or anything like that, I really liked how they handled the storyline with Ava and Barbara in particular, explaining why she does not fit in with the other church women, and explaining why she did leave eventually, but being away from the church and being away from singing were not making her feel closer to God. It was not like for her. It actually made her more upset, more like disconnected from her faith and really questioning her faith. And as we know, is one of the first things we know about her is that Barbara is really connected to her faith and finds a lot of strength in her relationship with God. And I think that was fantastic for us to see, and to see her explain that, like, it's not a few bad apples in there should not compromise her relationship with God. So I really respect what they did there with Barbara as well. And then Ava comes in and realizes that, I liked her first plan, but apparently you cannot key a church woman's car anymore. Times are changing. I hate it too.
Times are changing. Mm-hmm.
I think they should have let her do it. Like, how good could those cameras possibly be? However, I respect it. And now Ava decided that they were going to have a little concert in the Ava Coleman Coliseum and have Barbara perform for them. Now, it gets a little out of hand. It's maybe a few praises too many. Everyone's got a time limit. However, it was still the moment that Barbara needed, I think, to continue on with maybe some of the things that are not as great about her church experience.
Yeah, DJ Mr. Johnson drops the beat, and we get Barbara performing Shackles on stage in front of the kids. They're all enjoying themselves. You can tell everybody's going up because the song is a bop. Both Marys did what they needed to do in that song, and Barbara really did what she needed to do. I love seeing Sheryl Ralph sing, so that made me happy in general. But as you know, she took it a little too far because there's only so much praising you can do in a public school before people start to get angry. So she did a little set list, and then we had to drag her off a stage so we can move on to our next episode. But Gia, that was episode 5. What did you think about it in general?
I thought it was so good. I loved it. It was fantastic. I had a great time with it. Yeah, it was just a great episode. I think all the pairings were really strong here, and I think that's what makes a really good like A and B plots for Abbott Elementary. So all around great lineup of characters here.
Yeah. If y'all are listening to this and you don't follow Gia on Twitter, please do, because Gia is a good follow at Classically Gia. I was scrolling the timeline and I saw one of the funniest tweets. It said, "Oh, Abbott Elementary got Bradley Cooper money now."
They do have Bradley Cooper money.
We got money. This is nice. I said, okay. In episode 6 called WillardRAbbott, it starts off with a show and tell from Melissa's students. And yeah, Bradley Cooper has just walked into Abbott Elementary with one of the students because apparently he frequents the deli that's across the street from the school. We've seen Jalen Hurts. We have a song drop from Mary Mary. We've seen a song drop from Juvenile. We brought in Bradley Cooper. The wigs are better. Gia, it's a rich show. This feels rich. Doesn't it feel wealthy to you? This is
a upper middle class show right now. And we're gonna get there. We're getting upper class. Like, we are moving on up in the world here, but they're doing quite well right now. What is the what do rich people say? We weren't poor, but we never
we never needed anything. Yeah, we never went without. Right, exactly.
Abbott Elementary is currently not going without.
Yes. What did you think about Bradley Cooper being on Abbott? Because I was completely surprised. I didn't know this was coming. Did you?
Okay, so I've saw in the a couple of the I watched a little bit of the Oscars at like the tail end, but I did see some of the advertisements in the week leading up to this episode where they said there was going to be a surprise guest that was a current Oscar nominee. And I thought it was going to be Coleman Domingo. That was like my final answer on it.
Yes.
However, then I did not know when I made that guess that Bradley Cooper actually is from Philly. So that was new information for me. He was my celebrity crush for a very long time. So this I feel like was done specifically for me. Like they looked in my archive somewhere and just knew that this was the choice to get my attention.
Yeah, when they say Oscar nominee, I mean the person who was nominated for every single Oscar that night, because Bradley Cooper has got a billion Oscar nominations at this point. He's a megastar, and I just love a world where all the A-listers are getting into this show because I mean we love this show, and so yeah, Bradley Cooper again. Open invitation. Come talk to us.
Absolutely, I would love to know Bradley Cooper, like your experience on the show. That's all we need to talk about. But if you want to stay for a little bit longer, then like be our guest.
It's all good here. So,
Yes.
Janine ends up bringing in somebody from the city and Elizabeth from the education board. I barely remember Elizabeth from the Educator of the Year storyline. Do you remember what exactly happened with her and Gregory? Because she's his sleep paralysis demon now.
I remember her exactly because she comes in saying Gregory won Teacher of the Year, and to the confusion of a lot of people, but really to the confusion of Gregory, because everybody else that knew the nature of this award, that there is like a certain agenda that they usually abide by each year, and that year with Gregory winning happened to be they were looking for a Black male teacher, which is where we end up where we are now. But she was very we'd say aggressive about Gregory getting this award. So I remembered this woman very well. She is very business first in a kind of a sketchy way, I should say. And nothing about it changed in the in this episode either. She's like a very sourly charismatic person. She made me laugh quite a bit in this episode though. So she did her thing. She knows the part she is playing and she does it well.
Yeah, she's helping Janine make Abbott Elementary a historical landmark like the Rocky Stairs. I've been to the Rocky Stairs before, Gia, and it was so cool. I was like, oh wow, this is like so historic. This is such a big moment. But apparently Elizabeth, no, I think it's Joan. Joan from the city has a death wish because she says, yeah, this is a historical landmark, but it's more important than the Rocky Stairs, obviously, because Rocky's a fictional character. And I thought Melissa was going to knock her head off because I know people from Philly do not play about their Rocky.
As they should, because, like, first of all, why would you just spread misinformation like that on a public platform saying Rocky is a fictional character? Like, ABC was a little irresponsible just airing that without like a correction, not like a community note or anything like that at the bottom. Be like, this woman is crazy. Please mind your business. But I have also seen the Rocky Stairs and the Rocky statue. I actually recorded my dad running up the Rocky Stairs when we did our trip to Philly. It was like the one thing that we had to do during that day. It was like our one requirement for our hotel stay was do this one thing. It was great. It was a great time. Go to Philly and see the stairs if you haven't. But I also agree with I'm glad that we're getting a little bit into the historic side of Philly here because it is Philadelphia. There is a lot of history that happened here, particularly with the founding of the United States history specifically. And, they get deep into it, both the good and the not so good. And by not so good, I mean very, very, very bad.
Very, very bad. On the good side, you got the Rocky Stairs. You got the basketball court that Will Smith was playing at when he got in one little fight and his mom got scared and sent him, to live with his Uncle Belair. Yeah, all that stuff you got to see in Philly. But then also there's other stuff. There's other stuff that you still have to see in Philly because it's so cool. But it's also kind of laced and maybe a dark past from that America has, right? So the Liberty Bell is there. There's a lot of cool statues, a lot of streets named after some people that you probably read about, but probably have not gotten into all parts of him. I will say, it's named after a man named Penn. Listen, it's a lot going on in that area. Okay, so we find out that Abbott Elementary is no different because they want to do this thing for Willard R. Abbott and dedicate the school's name, make it a historical landmark, all that good stuff. But the community is invited to this function and they are not happy. There's an organization called Black, Gia.
It's called Blacks, actually, with an S.
Blacks. Yes. Blacks. This organization is hell-bent on letting everybody know that Willard R. Abbott was a racist. And so the group, Building Love and Creating Kids Safely, obviously, is here to spread the word and make sure that the school is not named after Willard R. Abbott. Apparently, he was a city planner who did a lot of redlining and trying to make the city less equitable for Black people in a time of segregation. And so we don't like this guy. Willard R. Abbott, you're dead to me. I mean, he's probably literally dead, but also dead to me. So we have to find somebody to replace him. And it seems like some people are okay with this, like just ending, Melissa, Barbara, they're like, all right, we gave it a shot, let it go. But Janine is not going to let this go, Gia. This is very important to her.
I mean, this is all the expected actions from the
Typical.
expected people. Barbara, Melissa saying there's no reason to invest any further into this because this was a bust. Let's move on. And and Janine, of course, is determined to make things right and be able to still keep the expensive plaque and everything. So what does she do? Of course, drag Gregory and Jacob to the library with her to see if they can find a different Willard R. Abbott to honor with this award.
Which is wild, right? The plaque has already been made. The city and the school district are not going to change the plaque. They're not going to change the name because Willard R. Abbott is probably the least offensive name that they'd have to get to change. There's a lot of slave owners in that area that were in the history of the United States. And not great. And so before you get to Willard R. Abbott, you're going to have to knock down a lot of statues and change a lot of names. And so it's on the wait list. And so Elizabeth jokingly says, why don't you just find another Willard R. Abbott? And although it's a joke, Ava really wants the grant money from having a historical landmark as a school. I mean, she raised this school, as she said. And Janine is very hell-bent on having this plaque and this ceremony because she wants people at Abbott to feel special. She wants people outside of Abbott to know how special Abbott is. So her, Gregory, and Jacob take off to the library to find another Willie Abbott or Willard Abbott. They land on Willie Abbott, but before they get there, we do see a special moment of bonding between Janine and Gregory. Gia, it seems like they haven't been talking much because he doesn't even know that she has a library initiative that she's pushing.
Well, you put a period on it, so sounds like that's your own problem, Gregory.
Yep, get over it. Grow up. You should have. Yep, your fault. Your fault.
You want to play games in my face, Gregory.
Right. 3 seasons in, and you still doing this kind of stuff. Anyway, Jacob is us. Jacob says, you know what? They need some time alone. Maybe they need some time alone to get it together because, let's face it, they're going to get together eventually. We need to start planting the seeds for this, right? So he gets out of the way. They talk. The chemistry is still there. Like as much as I'm annoyed at them for not just being together, I'm kind of like, all right, if I can get these little cute scenes, I'll deal with it, So eventually Jacob bursts back in. And he says, we've been doing this all wrong. There's no other Willard R. Abbotts that we need, but there is a Willie R. Abbott the fifth, the direct descendant of Willard Abbott. And he seems like the perfect person to now dedicate the school's name to and to give this plaque to in front of the community. But I don't think they were ready for what they had uncovered, Gia.
Oh, no, they were so close. They were so close. They went through every possible avenue. They looked for Willards. They looked for Bills. They looked for Willies, all of them, all everywhere. And they think they finally found their person, right? They found him. They asked all the important questions, like, what does he think of women? Where was he January 6th?
Big one. That's a big one.
Yeah, but that was the big one. And he had an answer. It seemed everything seemed to be going well. And then he gives his lovely little speech accepting this award. and denouncing racism of his what was it, great grandfather or something, his
Something like
namesake in
that.
there. So we
Mm-hmm.
think it's going well. And then talks about spreading his awareness from the edge of the world to the other edge of the world. And I knew exactly where this was going after this. I can't with it.
I flinched because when I heard it, I said, "Oh God, I thought we had it."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a flat earther. This man is standing in front of a bunch of impressionable elementary school kids, telling them that the Earth is flat,
And
that
but
gravity is not real.
and
Mm-hmm.
and the funniest part is one of the parents says, "Let him cook. Let him
Let
cook.
him cook.
Let
Let
him
him
cook."
talk. Yeah, let him talk. Listen. We're all free thinkers here. I mean, we know Mr. Johnson's into this kind of thing, so he's like, hey,
But
let's just hear him out.
I will say, Mr. Johnson did say before they went to question him to ask if he thought the moon was a spaceship. And
Mm-hmm.
they could have avoided all of this as per usual if they just listened to Mr. Johnson.
That's true. They asked if birds were real, so they were on the right track. But that spaceship question would have really blown this whole right open because we find out that this man is a flat earther, and we cannot have a flat earther doing the speech to little kids because the science books that their kids are reading are saying that the Earth is round, it is a globe, it is not flat, and this man is completely going against that in front of everybody. And so, although some people in the community are like, "Let him talk," a lot of people are like, "Okay, we got to shut this down." And so we no longer have anybody to dedicate the school to. Barbara and Melissa finally approach Janine and say, we get it. You're Janine. This is what you do. But why this time? What about this situation really makes you want to get this plaque and this dedication? And she says the school is special, but it's not because of, what people think about the school. It's about the people inside the school. And Barbara and Melissa, of course, echo that. It's the teachers, it's the kids, it's the faculty, and that make Abbott Elementary special. And that reminds Janine that although she considered dropping it and letting it go, she's actually going to ignore Melissa and Barbara as per usual and figure out another way to make this happen. And so she goes to the library and finds that over in, I guess, 1862, the first Black teacher at a public school was hired. And then shortly after, Abbott Elementary hired the first group of Black teachers in Philadelphia. And so there would be no Abbott Elementary without these trailblazers from the past. And Janine has used this time to honor them. So it's not a plaque. The school's not getting named after them. There's no big grant money coming, but they are going to show the people inside the school what makes the school so special.
And I loved this ending for it. I think that this is kind of the perfect way that it could go, all things considered. Obviously, the recognition itself would be great. But one of my favorite things, and I think Chappell, you'll agree, this is one of the reasons we became friends, is that we loved appreciating the often unappreciated Black players in Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is essentially what Janine is doing here, is looking at some of the underreported, unappreciated moments of history within their school. Many of which being that Abbott Elementary was one of the first schools to have Black teachers, and having this be a majority Black school, that's a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of things in this country and in the world you can say are very much there's a shroud of whiteness on top of it, right? It's like, okay, this white person did a very good thing for everybody, and we must all honor them from now until the end of time. And then when you move that shroud out of the way, a lot of times there's a dark past. Not saying all the time, but a lot of times there's a dark past because of the times, I'll say, and even just humanity at the time that says, okay, there's a people behind those people that are being overlooked and their contributions are not being celebrated. And so oftentimes you have to sift past that shiny outer layer and get down into what some people would consider like an ugly past, and really get down into the beautiful people who've been overlooked in those spaces. And so, yeah, so while we talk about all the good things about Philadelphia, you cannot ignore the other sides, right? All parts of this state, Pennsylvania, it's all made up of the history. You cannot just hide it and show the shiny parts, because that's not the truth. The truth is that a lot of people go into making this a great state and a great city and a great school for Abbott Elementary. And a lot of times those people are Black, not all the time, but sometimes, and so this was a way that Janine could get to the bottom of it and show off some of the unsung heroes at Abbott Elementary. And so I thought that was a really touching ending and a great way to sum up what I thought was another good episode. What did you think about episode 6?
It felt short, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it was shorter than the standard episode, because it aired right after the Oscars. But I liked it. It was cute. It was a very like quick one and done type episode. Um Overall, I would say probably not as strong as some of the other episodes we've seen this season so far, but it because of just the nature of like it's aired right after the Oscars. It's just the one story. It doesn't really have a lot of extra stuff going on with it. And it has kind of a very simple beginning, middle, and end. So it feels a little rushed to me. But
Mm-hmm.
I think the message that comes at the end of the story is incredibly important and one of my favorite parts of Abbott Elementary is that they have these lessons that I don't think are often appreciated as much in other shows like it. And I'm really happy that we have Abbott and that we have it sharing messages like this, like things that I would have loved to hear when I was the age of those kids when that are in Abbott Elementary.
Yeah, it's super relatable episode for me for sure. Two of my schools that I attended when I was a child are both now renamed because of the mascot and the namesake of the school and the racist background that it had. And I come from the inner city, so I come from a black school with a racist mascot, and it's like, well, why are those two things aligned, right? And so people went in and changed it after I was gone, but I do appreciate that commitment to honesty, I guess, when it comes to talking about these historical figures and these landmarks. And so, yeah, this one hit close to home, but I would agree. It felt like not a filler episode, but it didn't really move the plot forward. So I'm very excited to see what happens in episode 7 and 8 next week when we come back to cover that pair of episodes. So we'll be back on our normal schedule at that time. But Gia, this has been fun as usual. Tell everybody what you've been working on.
Oh my God, so much. Well, so oh my God, what have I been doing? Tweeting.
A lot.
I know I have. Oh, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Classically Gia for all of my television shenanigans. I am still doing our weekly recaps of Survivor 46 on Silent Podcasts on our podcast. I don't know about that. And I'm doing weekly roundups, also of Survivor 46 on Inside Survivor with my good friend Christine Palin. And I will have something on Recap Kickback soon with Chappell, but I don't want to announce it yet because I don't think I have permission yet. We'll wait.
Yeah, look,
Yes.
we want to tease you, but we don't want to give y'all too much right now because Gia and I are working on something special for Recap Kickback. Gia, thank you so much for being here and for working with me on that. We'll get there soon enough. Also on Recap Kickback, we had the Black TV theme song bracket. Part 1 is already available for your viewing pleasure. If you watch it on YouTube, you can see our beautiful faces and the bracket, but you cannot hear the songs. I put the songs in the show notes so you can go in and listen to each of the theme songs and fill out the bracket yourself. That's also in the show notes. You can click on it, fill it out, and compare your bracket to ours as we determine what is the best Black TV theme song of all time on recapkickback.com and on YouTube. Also, I'm doing Deal or No Deal Island coverage on the Hit or Quit podcast feed on RHAP. And I'm also doing exit interviews. My most recent exit interview with the legendary Claudia Jordan, eliminated from Deal or No Deal Island. Check that out on RHAP. Also, you got other coverage on RHAP coming from me as well. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but I'm everywhere these days, so check it out. I'll be talking about Australian Survivor soon. I got weekly Survivor coverage with Rob Sestonino on our Club Condo podcast every week. It's a fun time, so go to recapkickback.com and follow me on all social media platforms at Recap Kickback to keep up with everything I have going on. But y'all, class is over. For Gia, for Chappell, that's me. You all have a good one. Come back later. I mean, like I said, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get the hell up out of here. Until next week, peace.